All right. So now, when our user registration is ready, student registration is ready. Now we need something on admin side so that admin can approve the student users and then students can log into the system. Okay. So for this first thing, we need to have a service. So what we should call it? Maybe let's say user service in API services folder. Here we are going to inject our quiz context, database context. And here we need first one method to show all the users. Then we need to have one method which can toggle the approved flag for that user. Okay. So here we'll say public async task and we need list of users. That means we need some DTO. So we'll go to our shared project. In DTOs, we are going to create a user DTO here. And now this user DTO, we are not going to modify this. Okay, so this is going to be, we can have this as a record. We don't need any validation or modification on this. So public record user DTO. And here we'll have int ID, string name, string email, string phone, and boolean is approved. These things. Okay. So user DTO. Let's go back. It should return list of user DTO. User DTO array. Here we'll say get users async. And here what we can do, we can maybe implement paging here. We can implement filtering here. Yeah, maybe let's do filtering on approved and non-approved users. Yeah. So we'll have a boolean and we'll say uh, what we should call. Should we have is approved only or bool approved only? Then int page size, int page number and page size. So page size and page number. And for this approved only, we should let's create an enum. And from enum, what we'll do? Let me think. So we are going to have all, then only approved, then only unapproved. Okay, let's create an enum. So here we'll create an enum. We'll say public enum and user display type, or what we should call it, user approved filter, something like this. So here first thing we'll say all, then we'll say approved only, then we'll say unapproved only. Let's see how we can use this. So in this user service, we are going to have this enum. Approved filter, or let's say approved type. Page number, page size. Now we are good here. Now first we'll generate our query here. And because we are having page number and page size, and I think we will use QuickGrid for this one. Let's use QuickGrid. So for QuickGrid, we need to, for paging, it shows its built-in paging mechanism. We need to just provide the, we need to configure it, set up this. So it needs total number of count as well, total number of record as well. So we can't directly return user DTO, array of user DTO. Instead, we need to have some type which has these two information. One is total count and the second is collection of users. So for this, we'll go to our shared project only. We are going to create a new type. That also can be a DTO. So inside DTO, we are going to use a paged result type. We are going to create this paged result. And this also can be a record. So public record paged result, and this is going to be a generic type. We might reuse this for some other area of application as well. So we are going to have t record, type of the record, and here we'll have t record array records and int total count. So we are going to use this paged result as a return type from this user service. So paged result of type user DTU. This is going to be the dynamic type for this. Now we are good. Now we'll generate our query first. So it will be underscore context dot users. That's all. Then we'll check what is the status of this approved type. So here we'll say if approved type is not equals approved type dot all, then we'll have some other thing. Then we can have simply, we can check if approved type is equals user approved filter dot approved only. If that's the case, we'll say query equals query dot where u dot is approved. What happened here? Query dot where u dot is approved, and it is saying okay, this is db set, so we'll say as queryable. All right, now we have this filter, and then we can go to the else condition, and here we can say where user is not approved. All right, after this we need total count, so we'll say total equals await query dot count async, and then we will get users using await query dot. Now we need to apply paging, so we'll apply paging. Here we'll say order by descending u dot id. We are ordering it by user id. Then we'll say dot skip. Now page number -1 into page size. This is what we are going to skip with. Dot take. What happened? Yeah, take page size. So just skip page size, and then dot to array async, and then we'll return new paged result, and here users and total count. So user and total, and now we are good. And what it is saying, okay, this is returning user, so we'll have after maybe take, we'll say select new user DTO, and we'll have email ID is approved, name and phone. Save, and now we are good. What happened with user DTO? Okay, this is record, so we need to do this. So we need to have ID u dot id, then name u dot name, u dot email, u dot phone, u dot is approved. Now what is the problem? Okay, this semicolon should not be here. Now we are good. We have our user service ready with this one method get users async with paging. Now let's create one more method here to toggle the approved flag for the user. So we'll say public async task, and here we'll say quiz API response, and we'll say toggle user approved status, something like this, and we'll get user ID as a parameter here. Okay, so here quiz API response, should we return quiz API response, or there's no need to return anything? There's no need to return anything. With the user, first we need DB user, so we'll say await context dot users dot first dot default async u dot id equals user id. Okay, then we'll say if DB user is not null, then we'll say DB user dot is approved equals not DB user dot is approved. So we'll toggle the approved flag for this user, and then we'll say await context dot save changes async, and we are good with this setup. We don't need to do anything else. Alright, let's register this user service in DI container. So program.cs, where we have registrations to our services, here only we'll register this one more service at transient user service. And then we'll go to our endpoints, auth category quiz endpoints. Let's create one more class here. We'll say public static class user endpoints, and we are going to say public static I endpoint route builder map user endpoints. This I endpoint route builder app, from here we'll return app, and then on this app we'll say map get, and we are going to have two different methods, right? One is for getting the users and one is for toggle the user approved status, and get users async, toggle user approved status async. So let's create a group here. So we'll say var group equals app dot map group and API slash users. We'll have this thing, and on this we will have require authorization, and this thing user endpoints. I guess this should be available only for admin user. First, let's move this user endpoints to a separate type. Then this should be available to use the admin only. So we'll simply add this require role as well. For this require authorization, API users in require authorization, we'll say that this should be available only for admin rules. Now on this group, we'll map get. Now we want to fetch all the users. So these are API slash users. The URL would be same. Inside this, I'm going to say async, and then we need the type. What was that? User approve filter, right? So we can name it whatever, maybe let's say filter, then int page number, then int page size. All right, these are the parameters from URL, and here we'll inject our user service service, and then from here we'll return results dot okay. Here we'll say await service dot get users async, and here we'll provide all these things. So we'll say filter dot page number comma page size, and we are good. Let's map one more to toggle the active status. So group dot map patch, this should be type of patch, and here we'll have this user id int, and then slash, let's say toggle status, we'll say async, and int user id, then we'll say user service, and here we'll say return or just results dot okay await service dot toggle user status async, and we'll provide user id as a parameter to this. And with this setup we are good. And something is not right. What is not right? Void to object. Oh, because this is okay, so this does not return anything. So here what we'll do, we'll have this thing, we'll do the operation, then we'll simply return results dot okay. Save everything. Now we are good. We need to map these user endpoints in a program.cs where we are mapping all these endpoints. Here we'll say map user endpoints. Okay. Now where is user service? We will have these two things on our UI in a Refit client. Okay, so let's go to web project, APIs, and here maybe on iCategory API or anyone, we'll create a new interface, public interface I user API. Here we are going to have these two methods, one this and the second one this. Now first one is going to be get with slash API slash users, and second one is going to be fetch with slash API slash users slash dynamic param user id slash toggle status, right? And then this also needs this authorization header, so we'll add this, and then we'll move this iUser API to separate file, and then we'll go to program.cs here where we are registering all our Refit APIs. We'll register this one more type, so we'll say iUser API, and with this setup everything is fine. Now we are good from API side of things. Now we are good to work on a UI side. So in pages, in admin, I'm going to create a new Razor file. I'll say manage users or manage students. Let's say manage users, or maybe manage students dot Razor. We'll follow the naming convention for URL route. Admin slash manage students. All right. And then we are going to inject our iUser API, user API. Cool. Now we want to have a list of users. We'll say private and not list of users directly. We want to use QuickGrid here. So let's do this. Let's install QuickGrid package. So we'll go to manage NuGet packages. And let's get QuickGrid. Not this one, this Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components QuickGrid. We need this one. Install it. Apply. I accept. And It is installed now. All right, now we are on this manage students page. Here, let's try to use QuickGrid. If we do this, QuickGrid, QuickGrid, it will ask us to add this using statement. So we can have it here because right now we are using this QuickGrid on this page only, but let's move it to the underscore imports.razor, the global root level. We might use this somewhere else as well, so we'll use it here. QuickGrid. Now with this QuickGrid, it has a couple of properties, parameters. We will be using this items provider. Okay, using this we can have server side filtering and paging. So we'll use this items provider. If you check, this is of type grid items provider of type t grid item. So this generic parameter t grid item. Okay, a callback that supplies data for the grid. It is missing. Okay, so grid item provider t grid item, we need this one. So in our code block we'll say private grid items provider. The type of item this grid is going to have, that is user DTU. We'll say user DTU. So here we can say users provider. Then we'll go to our override on initialized. Here we will provide value for this user provider, and this is if we go to this, should be a delegate. This is a delegate with returns value task of grid items provider result, and it takes a parameter of grid items provider request. So this is request struct which has start index count. We are going to use these two, but here, so this is a delegate which gets a request. So we'll say request and it returns something. Now that something is returns grid items provider result. Here we have this factory method from, and then we can provide items and total item count. Now we need these two things, items. In this case, items are our users. So we need to have users and total count, and that we'll get from this user API. So that means we need to fetch users using this user API inside here. Now we'll say var paged result equals await. When we say await, then this becomes this async. Await user API dot get users async, and here we need approved type, page number, and page size. So for approved type we need to have something here. We'll say private user approved filter, let's say underscore filter equals, we'll have a default value as all. So we'll use this underscore filter here. Then page number, this will be provided by request dot it has start index, but our API uses page number. Okay, so we need to convert this start index to page number, or we can convert our page number to start index. So both approaches we can follow. So let's do this. Let's do the opposite. We'll go to the API and user endpoints. Here we'll rename this page number to start index. Start index. We'll go to this get user async. We'll change this to start index, and then in here when we're skipping it, we can directly skip start index. Okay, and this thing we will change in our what was the user API as well. User API, we'll change the name to be in sync. All right, now back to our manage students. So we can directly provide request.start index, and then we have request.count. This is page size. Now this is nullable, So for this, if this is nullable, we can have a default page size. So we'll say private const int page size, or let's call it default page size. Let's say 10 page size. Here we'll say if request.count is null, let's use default page size. Now using this, we will have total count and users DTU array inside this page result. So in this from method, grade items provider result dot from, we can say page result dot records, and then we can say page result dot total count. So this thing is ready. Users provider is ready now. Okay. Now in this quick grid, we can simply say items provider equals this users provider. All right. Now we'll define our appearance of our grid. So here we'll say columns. Basically we'll provide columns. So property column, and for this we can provide property, and this automatically get, this is a link queue func, it gets t grid item as an input parameter, returns t prop. So here we can say u, which is going to be user DTU, u.id, and we are good with one column. And let's duplicate it. So after id we are going to have name, then we are going to have email, then we are going to have phone, then we are going to have our is approved flag. Now for all these, the previous one, id, name, email, phone, we are good, but for this is approved, we want to have toggle functionality here inside this is approved only. Okay, so what we will do here, instead of property column, QuickGrid has one more type of column, that is template column. In this we can provide our own custom HTML. Okay, so on this we'll provide a title. These titles you can provide on property columns as well. If you don't provide it, it by default takes the name of the property, so it will have id, name, email, phone. So we are good with these default titles. But for template column, it does not have direct property because we are providing the HTML. So in these template columns, we need to explicitly provide title. Here we'll say is approved question mark. We can do this. Inside this, we'll have a condition, or maybe not condition. We can render our switch, right? The switch checkbox. So that we have on manage quiz or save quiz page, right? Let's go there and let's copy this checkbox. Will be form switch. We'll come here, we'll add it here. Now here we'll just modify it. Input checkbox, we can't have it because this is not a part of what we call it. It is not a part of any edit form. We need to have input type checkbox. Input type checkbox. Okay. Then let's add all the classes and all these things. So we'll say class, role, ID, all these things. Type is also there, right? Yes, class, type, switch, all these. Then we'll remove this input text altogether and we'll be like this. Here we have this label which says this is active, and ID and 4 we can change it to say we can say u is active, but then it is going to be rendered inside a table, so it will be same for multiple things. So instead of that, what we'll do, we'll simply make this ID dynamic. So we'll say u underscore. Now how will we access the current user inside this? So for this template column, it gives us a context variable. So if you check this context type of this is user DTO, this is this current user. So context.id, this is u underscore dynamic id dot chk. Then copy this. If it's not coming, we are okay with this also. We can maybe create the dynamic string as well if you want to, but we are good with this. So u underscore user id, u underscore user id. Then this thing is active. Let's generate yes or no, the dynamic string here. So here we'll say if, or maybe we can make it using ternary. So we'll say context dot is approved. If this is approved, then it should say yes. And if it is not approved, then we'll say no. Approved yes or no. Save it. And now what we need to do, whenever we are changing its status, we need to send API request. Okay. So we will define one method here. We'll say on change equals, we'll say on user approved toggle, something like this. Toggle is saying something like this. So we'll define this method. Now inside this, we need to have access to the current user ID. So for this, what we'll do, we'll make it this delegate lambda, and here we'll say context dot id. We'll pass this. Let's define this method in our code block. We'll say private async task. This thing here we'll have int user id. Okay. Then we'll say await user API dot toggle user approved status async, and we can provide this user ID. Now what we can do, instead of passing this user ID like this, we can say this, we can have optimistic approach, right? So what we'll do, instead of providing the ID, we'll directly pass the complete user object. Instead of the int user ID, we'll say user DTO user. Here we'll say user.id, but before this, we'll say user.isApproved equals not user.isApproved. We'll make that toggle here only on the UI. And what it is saying? It is saying because this user is a record. Okay, let's try to do this. User equals user with is approved equals not user dot is approved. We'll see if it works. But it will not, because these are immutable. Records are immutable and we are trying to mutate it, right? This should not work here, because then it will break. Now right now when we are here, it is passing by reference, but when it comes here, when we are assigning a new value, then that reference passing, that connection is broken. Now it will point to some other piece of memory, and then it will not modify the existing thing. Okay, so we can get rid of this thing. Now we have multiple approaches. First thing, we can change this user DTO to a class. Second thing, what we can do on this thing, after approving it, we can refetch the users. Okay, so this is totally up to you how you are planning to do it, how you are doing it. So for me, the good solution would be to change this record to full class. So let's do this. I'll change it. I'll create it as a class. Prop int id, prop string name, then prop string email, then prop string phone, then prop bool is approved. Now we need to change our user service, this thing. Now user DTO is a class, or we can do this. We can create a parameter as constructor inside this. Generate constructor by having all these fields, and using this we will be good. Now we don't need to change this thing. Come on, pick it up. Yeah. So now we are good. Now here in our manage students page, now we can do user.isApproved equals not user.isApproved. So toggle the users is approved flag and then just make this API call. We are okay right now. We need to show loader also, that we'll do later, but right now we are good with this. Now we are good. It will work. But right now it is not using paging. We need to tell it to use paging. So for this, what we need to do, we need to have, and we need to have this filter also. We'll make these two things work. First, we need paging. So for that, we have a pagination state class, which is provided by this QuickGrid package. So pagination state, here we can say pagination state equals new pagination state. Inside this, we can provide items per page. This is our default page size. Okay. Now we need to map this pagination state with this quick grid. So on this quick grid, we have a state or pagination state. Pagination equals this underscore pagination state. Now it will use pagination, but it will not show us a UI for pagination, page next, previous, on page number, all those things. We need to have that explicitly. So for this quick grid package, it gives us one more component, that is this paginator component. Inside this, we can set our state, which should be this pagination state only. And now we are good. All these things are here now. Now next thing, we just need to make this manage state as a part of our layout. So for this, first thing, we need that section content with section name as page title, right? And here we will have manage students. Then we are going to have a div class row. Inside this, first thing, we'll have that that filter, right? That this filter, this underscore filter. We'll do this. We can have maybe radio buttons, or we can have a drop down list. So drop down list will be quick to set up, so we'll use drop down list only. So here we'll say div class call sm4, and we'll say ms auto, margin start auto, so that it moves to the very right. On there we are going to have filter, or maybe approve, filter by approved status, something like this. Filter by approved status. After that, I'm going to have one more div here, div class call sm4, and here we are going to have a select tag. So we'll say select, and class, we'll have form control, and here we'll bind it with the value of filter, and then we are going to have options with for each directly. Here we'll say var f in enum dot get values of user approved filter, and then we are going to have option with the value as this f filter, and the text also as this f only. Okay, and maybe we don't need to do this. This select also can be part of this first div only, and then this filter by approved status, we can have it in a label, class form label, paste it, and remove the second thing. Then we can move these quick grids inside this div only. So cut this. Inside this div, or maybe after this, we are going to have one more row, div class row, and here we'll paste this quick grid. Save everything. Now we should be good. First we'll see how these are looking, then we'll work on that filter. Right now we have this select, but we are not uh, updating the grid when we are changing the filter. That thing we'll do next. Right now we just want to see if all this setup, whatever we have done till now, all this is looking and behaving the way we are expecting it to. Login, admin, and we didn't add a link to it, so we'll add link soon. But right now we'll say admin slash manage students, and it again went back to auth login. Something is not right. We'll see manage students, we are good. What is the problem here? Imports, we have this thing. Okay, we'll check what is happening, why it is not working. But right now let's go to the nav menu and let's add the link to that thing. Here we have this admin role, first one, manage quizzes and all this. Here we are simply going to copy the manage quizzes, paste it, and we'll say manage students and manage students. Save it, run it. API, UI, auth login, manage students. There is some error. Let's see what is the error. Console 400 bad request, and this might be because of that what we call it, that enum. So network, something is not, it logging in not working, right? We'll try this, but let's remove this. Manage students, approve type equals all, 400 bad request. Why is this bad request? Required parameter user approved filter was not provided from query string, but it was provided. This must be because how the enums are handled in controller action binding and minimal API binding. We need to see there is something, right? When we find these enums to request JSON string enum converter, we can use that. But how will we use that within this context for get request? Okay, right now the quickest way we can do is we can go to our API endpoint, user endpoints. Here, this filter, what we can do. Right now I'm going with the quickest solution. So we'll have this add string. Okay, now we'll try to parse this filter to that enum type. Var, let's say enum filter, we'll say filter approve filter, something like this. The name is, I'm not very happy with the name, so I don't know what I should name it right now. Approve filter equals, we could say enum dot parse user approved filter and this filter, and then we'll pass this approved filter to this. Save it and it should work. All right, something is broken. We are in console application, we have user information. Okay, first let's see if this works, then we'll see what is the problem there, why it is again going back to login again and again. Manage students, and we still have the same problem. Now what is the problem? Approve type, bad request, approve type still, and we changed it from here string filter, but we didn't change it uh, filter, right? We didn't change it in the API side, UI API, user API. Let's have this. Oh, maybe the problem was not that filter. The problem was name. This is approved type. And here, okay, let's fall back to that thing. We have this approved type. Let's see if this works. If it is not, then we'll try to fix these names and all these. Approved type. Save, start. Okay, login. It is annoying. Manage students, and we can see, okay, it is working. We are good. That was the name was the problem. Okay, forget, we are good. Now I need to refresh it, hard refresh, so that it can load the CSS of that quick grid. So it will be a one-time process. Now we can see this. We have this paging, we have these no and yes. All approved only, unapproved only. We'll change these as well. But right now we can at least see these things. This approved status is not correct. We'll fix this. So for this, what we need to do, if we go to our page, manage students, here in this input type checkbox, we need to explicitly tell the checked status. So here we'll say checked equals. If this is checked or not, for this we need to say context dot is approved. If context dot is approved is true, then it should be in checked state. Then on this grid, we can have a class, and here we can define table for table striped and table hover. Save everything. Then within these two things, we can have one HR, or on this select, or maybe this call SM auto, we can have MB3 to have some spacing. Save. Hot reload. Let's see if it does something. It is not doing anything. Oh, there is something. Stop debugging. Okay, we'll restart it. But before that, let's quickly work on this as well. This for each and approve filter. So this is underscore filter. So after changing this filter, what we want to do, we want to have at the rate, or is it, let's see if it works automatically, because I'm not sure right now, because we are changing this. This is an event, but this is not that event, right? It should not work directly. We'll work through it. Your account is not a, what? We are using admin at gmail.com. Oh, you see what we did? When we opened the users list, admin account was also there. So what we should do, we should go to user service. Here we should exclude the admin accounts from here. Dot where u dot role is not equals name of user role dot admin. We should not show the admin accounts there. Okay, so for now what we'll do, or maybe we need to enable this, approve this account first. So what we'll do for now, we'll simply remove this. We are not directly going to database, that's why we are doing this. Inside our auth service, we will quickly skip this approved test, then we'll modify it, and then we'll re-enable this, and then we'll skip the admin users to be shown in that manage students list. API UI manage students, we have this admin user, we'll say this is approved, and it resets, right? We need to work on this. So it reset, then we have this. Now let's quickly go back and re-enable this condition, save it, and then go back to this get users async, and here let's add this condition. It should not display admin users. Start. Login. This is getting annoying now. Manage students, inspect, console, remove it, network. If we change this, it sends this request and it calls the users again. But this time, when we get the status, we have is approved false again. If we go to manage categories, come back to this. Now we have approved status is true. So this is happening because the gap between these two is very less. That is the problem. We need to handle this case. So let's go to manage students and try to see what is happening here. We do this, but when we change this, it comes here, it calls this, and before it get finished maybe, or it just finished, it sends a new request, and before it has updated the status, the next request gets the previous status. So we should have some delay before it starts re-rendering. So what we can do, I don't know, let's try something. So there is one method, should render, which is available for all the Blazor components. So what we can do here, we can prevent the re-rendering of this. Let's say I'll have a private bool should render or should re-render. By default this should be false, true. It should re-render always. Then we'll, in this should render, we'll have this should render, re-render, and then when we are here, after is approved and not user is approved, we'll have this should render to false, and when it came back, the response of this came back, then we'll try to set it again back to true. Save it, and let's see if it works the way we are expecting it to. Start. We'll see if it does not work, then we'll try to do something else. Login, manage students, yes, no, yes, no, we are good. If we go to inspect, if we go to network, we say yes, it sent this request, but after that it didn't try to refresh this grid, and we are good with this setup, right? Now let's try to change this, approved only, unapproved only. It is not doing anything. Whenever we are changing it, at this time also it should try to refresh this grid. So for this thing, what we'll do, by the way, do let me know in the comment if you guys were aware about this should render method. Okay, this came very handy here. I think I have used it for the first time. Okay, I love this. All right, now whenever we are changing this select, at that time, what should happen? We'll say at the rate bind after. Here we'll say on filter changed. On filter changed. It should call this on filter changed method. Now we'll define this method, or maybe on filter changed async. We'll define this method here. Private async task. Now when it happens, what we want this grid to reload. Now how we can do this? From this quick grid, we can actually get a reference of this. So the way we can get reference, we'll say at the rate ref equals, we'll have one variable of type quick grid. In here we'll say private quick grid of type user dtu, we'll say underscore grid. Okay, it should be nullable. And then we'll come here and we'll set this at the rate ref to this grid. Now we have instance of this quick grid inside this underscore grid parameter. Now when we are here, all filter changed, first we'll check if this grid is not null. If it is not null, then we'll say await underscore grid dot refresh data async. We have this method on this. Save it. Let's start it. API UI login, manage students. No, if we say approved only, we can't see anything. If we say unapproved only, we can see this one, and all we will be able to see this. We say no. Now we have yes. Approved only, it will be here. Unapproved only, we will not have anything, because right now this this student is approved. Okay, so looks like we are good with this manage student screen as well. We have list of users, we can filter, we can change its toggle status, and we have this paging as well. All right, so yeah, we are good. Now next thing, we'll fix that thing. If we are refreshing it, it is going back to the login state, right? But we have the user state stored in our browser's local storage, right? Okay, that we'll do next.